Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to my review and in depth analysis of Alien Romulus. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Alien franchise. It's a franchise that I love just as much as Star Wars, just as much as Terminator. I mean, it's really dear to my heart, especially the original first two films. They are some of my favorite films of all time, and I consider them masterpieces. Now, when it comes to Romulus, initially I was kind of on the fence about the movie. Like, let me just say, when I first saw it, I loved it. Then, when I saw it the second time, I started to see some things I didn't like. And I thought about them, and I was irritated about the things I didn't like. And I went back and watched it after watching the first three films: Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and then I watched Covenant. And the reason why I skipped Prometheus, I love Prometheus, just gonna let you know right now, I love Prometheus. But the reason why I just went straight to Covenant was because I was initially on the fence about that movie too. And I think we can't talk about Alien Romulus without talking about Covenant. Even though the films don't really connect with each other, but Covenant was the prior installment in this series. And Covenant, you know, I really, I wanted to like Covenant, but the movie sucks, man. And the reason why the movie sucks, so Alien Covenant basically is like the Last Jedi or the Rise of Skywalker to the prequels of the Alien series. And the reason why I say that is because Alien Covenant is basically the ship sailing in an entirely different direction than what was set up with Prometheus. And it was to the detriment of the story. And I didn't like how they basically just changed the story, and now the whole shit doesn't make sense. And basically, what I'm talking about is in Prometheus, a movie that I love. I love Prometheus, and I can't wait to review that film for you. But in short, I love how the film tried to be different. There wasn't a xenomorph in the movie per se. It tried to be different. It explained just enough to satisfy me, but at the same time left things ambiguous, which I like. I don't like it when prequels explain everything, because then you write yourself into a corner. Now, Prometheus showed us that the, I guess you want to say, the bioweapon, synthetic goo, whatever you want to call it, the pathogen, it showed us that whatever comes into contact with this black goo basically creates a whole new life form. And we see on the mural in Prometheus a xenomorph. So from that, we can infer that the engineers created the xenomorphs. Because otherwise, why is there a xenomorph on the mural where the black pathogen goo stuff is? Right? Well, Covenant threw that out the window and made it so that David, the android, created the aliens, created the xenomorphs, which just totally contradicts the previous movie, which is stupid. Not only that, but they killed off the main character from Prometheus, who I really liked. I really liked Elizabeth Shaw. I thought she was a badass. I endured her pain in Prometheus. And then for them to kill her character off screen for Covenant was just preposterous. And so Covenant sucks. And then here comes Alien Romulus. And like I said, initially I went back and forth between this movie. And after seeing Covenant and after seeing Aliens and Alien 3, I like Romulus, man. I like Romulus a lot. Now, it's not a perfect movie. It's definitely flawed. However, this movie gets something right that has been missing in the franchise, minus Prometheus. But even I want to say this movie did more than Prometheus did in this regard. What am I talking about? I'm talking about horror, right? Alien 3 really was not scary to me. It tried to be, but it was just kind of this nihilistic, depressing, downbeat, somber movie, right? But Alien and Aliens, those were suspenseful. Those were straight horror, sci-fi horror movies. I mean, and they were thrillers, you know, they were exciting at the same time. And the reason why it worked for those movies is because there's a slow burn effect to those movies. But then at the same time, you know, it just captured that horror spirit. And Alien 3 tried to capture that. And I can admire the attempt, but when the experience was over, I was just kind of like, you know, a little bit indifferent to it. And my feelings towards Alien 3, I'm going to have to expand upon that in a separate review. Then you have Alien Resurrection, which was just, I mean, I did not like Resurrection. I thought it was trash. It was just your typical summer blockbuster, mindless movie that didn't need to be made, right? Alien 3 didn't need to be made either. It did not need to be made. And Alien Resurrection definitely didn't need to be made, and I thought it was taking the series in the wrong direction, right? I mean, we're resurrecting Ripley when she sacrificed herself to kill the queen. I mean, it was just like, come on, man. It was gimmicky. Didn't like it. Then we get Prometheus, right? So I'm not going to talk about Alien vs. Predator. We're talking about Prometheus. And I like Prometheus, had that slow burn effect. It took time, right? And when things started to happen, it was directed in a horror element. However, I will say that, you know, the movie wasn't really all about blood and guts and stuff like that. What made the movie, I want to say, suspenseful was that you did not know what the hell's going on. I mean, this took the story in an entirely different direction. I mean, it's an alien movie without xenomorphs, right? And I like that because it tried to be different, and we get introduced into the world of the engineers and the space jockeys. And that's what was suspenseful and exciting. And then all these things start happening and you don't know what the hell's going on. You're like, what's going on? I mean, there's no xenomorphs going on, xenomorphs, but all this crazy shit's happening. Then you get Covenant. And Covenant, man, Covenant, the characters in Covenant were just so stupid. And again, I don't want to talk too much about it, but the characters were stupid. And they were so dumb that it wasn't suspenseful. And there was only one little part about in that movie that actually felt horror, right? And that's when the xenomorphs start popping out that dude's back and then whatever in their little shuttle that landed. But other than that, the movie was just like whatever. It wasn't scary because of how stupid it was. And then it was too fast paced. You had the xenomorphs growing at this ultra fast rate and things like that. But then let's talk about Romulus. So Romulus captured the horror element of the series perfectly. Fede Alvarez, who directed the Evil Dead remake, which I thought was amazing. And I don't even like remakes. I did not even initially really want to see the Evil Dead remake, but when I saw it, I was like, holy smokes, this is intense. And then now, Fede's done this Alien movie, right? And it is exciting. It's fun. And it captures that horror spirit. And I think that's ultimately what makes this film integrated into the quote-unquote good batch of Alien movies. So I rank Alien Romulus as my fourth favorite Alien movie after Alien, Aliens, and Prometheus, right? And the reason why some of you may be like, what, Prometheus? But like, I like Prometheus because it had a little bit more artistic integrity than Romulus. Now, Romulus has a little bit of there is some artistic integrity in there, right? But at the same time, and I'm going to expand upon this when I talk about some of the flaws of this movie. They're kind of going for this like summer blockbuster popcorn movie, and it works in some places as far as like the directing and the excitement, but it fails in other departments as far as the lore. And that's ultimately some of the reservations that I have against this movie, is just kind of like how it messes with the lore. Now, it's not a big deal. Like, there's some Alien fans that are really pissed off, and I listen to them, and I understand their concerns. I understand their sentiments, and I can understand how that could be upsetting. And when I think about it, it is a little frustrating from an artistic standpoint. And the main thing that I think people dislike about this movie is the fact that the original alien that Ripley defeated in the first film survived. Ripley did not kill that alien. And, when I think about it, I get it, man. I'm like, wow, it ruins her victory, etc., etc. But to counter that, I want to say this. Ultimately, Ripley's true victory was against the alien queen in Aliens, right? I mean, you can knock out one little alien and whatever, it survives. But Ripley destroyed the alien queen and basically nuked that the little hive, the planet where they were at in Aliens. Well, not the planet. They didn't destroy the planet, but they totally nuked that part where the colonists were, right? Where she found Newt. So to me, that's her ultimate victory. But I get it. It kind of sucks that the original alien survived. And I definitely think there could have been a more creative and original way for the filmmakers to introduce the aliens in this new movie, right? Now, another thing that alien fans are upset about is the fact that there's this space station, the Romulus, that basically has been, it's this Weyland space station that's basically a treasure trove of everything Weyland Industries has ever wanted. So you have this treasure trove filled with the pathogen that they want, the xenomorph, face huggers, everything that they could have ever wanted is on this space station. Yet it's floating around in space for 10 years, and it comes into orbit around this mining planet that's also owned by Weyland Industries, and like nobody knows about it. And some alien fans that don't like this movie, that's one of the main bone of contentions that they have. One of the main reasons why they don't like this movie. They're like, how the hell can there be this space station floating around and Weyland Industries not know about it? It's stupid. Now, to me, I listened to those sentiments and I started to kind of feel that way, but then something made me kind of rescind my feelings in regards to that, reevaluate my feelings. And to the people that really hate that about this movie, you got to remember this about this series. When the original Alien came out, there was no explanation whatsoever as to what the hell that space jockey was, what the hell his ship was doing on that planet. How the hell did all these alien eggs get in the ship? I mean, there was no explanation. It was a mystery. And it was okay. When the original Alien came out, it was okay that everything was not explained. And I think it's okay in this case as well. Because initially, I also was like, hey, wait a minute, how is there going to be this space station filled with all this stuff and Wayland Industries not going to know about it? And how is this possible? And this is stupid, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then I remembered the first Alien movie and how the origin of the alien, the space jockey, the ship, none of that was explained, but that didn't stop the audience from enjoying the movie. And you know what? Same thing here, man. I have to say, like, you know what? It is a mystery. It's a mystery as to why this space station has been abandoned or forgotten about or unknown by Wayland Industries for 10 years. We don't know. And you know what? I'm not going to hold it against this movie because I am going to use the original Alien as that footnote as to why it's okay to have a mystery. And same thing with Prometheus. It's okay to have a mystery. It's okay to have something be unexplained. Right? It's okay. So I want those two things are probably the main reasons why people that don't like this movie don't like it. I get the alien surviving the original film. Yeah, I wouldn't have done that. And to be honest, that's the only thing I kind of don't like about this movie. I mean, there's other things, and I'm going to talk about them, but that's like probably the number one thing. Having the first alien survive, nah, man, I think that was a bad idea. But you know, I'm not going to let it stop me from enjoying all the other good that is present in this film. So let's expand more upon this review, right? So first things first, I want to say that the original Alien that Ripley defeated, surviving is just stupid. It's stupid. And again, they should have came with a better way to introduce the alien in this movie. It's stupid. Why is it stupid? Because look, Ripley shot the alien with a harpoon, blew it out the airlock into the vacuum of space, then blasted the shit out of it with the thrusters from the shuttle that she was on. So this alien can survive being shot with a harpoon, being blown into the vacuum of space, being blown to bits by the thrusters of her space shuttle, and the thing is somehow managed to cocoon itself. I don't like that, man. I don't like that at all. I call bullshit on that. Piss off. Because what? At this point, well, you got to remember, Ripley blew the alien queen out of the airlock too. An alien, so what? Is it going to cocoon itself and survive too? It better not, because then I'll be mad. Because then you're really taking away Ripley's victory. But again, they could have came up with a better way. Like when I originally saw the film, I didn't, there's a lot of stuff going on and you have to process it. But when I originally saw the film, I thought that was like I thought that was the alien in fossilized form. I didn't think that they cocooned itself. It cocooned itself and actually survived, but they actually like crack open the cocoon and the alien pops out and starts killing all the scientists and personnel on the Romulus space station. And it's like, what a crock of shit, man. And here's another thing that pisses me off. So the alien from the original movie survives, but it gets killed off screen. And then the android, Rook, says, oh, it was destroyed by the security personnel. So, like, come on, man. How are you going to bring back the original alien and then kill it off screen? Like, that's so stupid, man. Like, come on. I mean, it's a big deal for me because I'm a huge Alien fan, but I know if you're just the general audience or if you're not the biggest fan, you could probably care less. But for me, it's like, come on, man. Why even bring it back if you're just going to kill it off screen? You could have, like, done some Jurassic Park shit. Meaning, like, they could have had, like, the alien fossilized and just use its DNA to create face huggers and et cetera, et cetera. You didn't have to bring it back like that it's alive if you're just going to kill it off screen. That was stupid. And I have to ask myself, being a big Alien fan, we know that these aliens don't have a thermal signature, right? Because they're like cold-blooded. This was said in Aliens. So I want to know, how in the hell were the scientists even able to find this alien in this cocoon? Another thing that was really, really fucking stupid was how they show pieces of the Nostromo space station floating in space next to the original alien, which is just mind-bogglingly stupid. I mean, like, this is a bad start to the movie, right? And I'm gonna tell you right now, Act 1 of this movie is pretty weak. Fortunately, Act 2 and 3 are great, but Act 1 is pretty weak, and it's because of the logic, the logistics. It wasn't intellectually calculated, man. It's like the writers did not know how to introduce the alien, so they came up with a bunch of stupid shit, and some of this stupid shit is just the fan service. And that was the whole reason why they had the pieces of the Nostromo floating in space, and then you have this piece of wreckage with the label Nostromo slapped on the side of it so that you can see it. Oh, look, it's pieces of the Nostromo. No, that's not what it makes me do. Instead, it makes me say, that's fucking stupid. Why is it stupid? Because you have to remember, the Nostromo was atomized, man. It was blown up by 3 nuclear explosions. Go back right now, pop in the original Alien, and watch the Nostromo explode, and tell me that there's going to be wreckage surviving that. 3 atomic explosions in space. Not only that, but you have to remember, Ripley's shuttle was light years away from that explosion. And it's like the writers of this movie forgot these details, which leads me to ask, if you're not going to pay attention to these details, to the lore of this series, why the fuck are you writing the movie? Act 1 of this movie is pretty weak. Minus the dynamic between the Rain character and Andy, which I'm going to get into, right? But as far as the logistics and how they set up the alien into this movie, it's pretty stupid, right? And that's unfortunate. But fortunately, Act 2 and 3 of this movie are outstanding, right? Now, I do want to say something about how the director uses silence to convey powerful scenes in this movie. And I love that. So there's moments in this movie where there's no soundtrack, there's no sound effects. It's just pure silence. And I love that because it really captures the mood, the tone of space. And when you have that silence juxtaposition with all this alien horror stuff, it makes it infinitely more scary, in my opinion. And I really love that. And it makes it more thrilling and makes some of these scenes more powerful and exciting. The absence of music, the absence of sound effects. And I really like that. I thought that was a great artistic decision. And little things like this are why I can't just dismiss this movie and say there's no artistic integrity in it. There is. I want to say that there's 50% artistry in this film and then 50% fun popcorn summer movie, right? And, you know, at times they blend really well and other times they clash, right? So I want to talk about the score to this movie. I think the score, the soundtrack is excellent. And I think it was very appropriate for a sci-fi horror movie. The score is brilliant. I really like it. I think it's the best score in this series since Alien 3. Even though I have reservations about Alien 3, I'm not the biggest fan. The score was great to that movie. Prometheus had a good score too, but it really wasn't horror, right? But here they do a great job, right? A really great job with that. And Alvarez's directing is very good. I'm really glad that he brought those horror sensibilities to this movie. He did a really good job with that. Now, let's talk about the cast of this movie. Now, the cast, I first want to say this, man. This cast is way better than the cast in Covenant. I absolutely loathe and hate the entire cast of Covenant minus Michael Fassbender, who played David and Walter. Everybody else was just, oh my God. You roll your eyes, you cringe. You're just like, oh my God, man, these characters suck. And that was one of the biggest reasons why Romulus just didn't do it for me. Now here, I want to say it's 50-50, right? I really enjoy half of the cast members, and then the other half I'm either indifferent to, or I just feel like they're just insufferable. So let's talk about the cast. All right, number one, Andy, the android, is the best character in this entire movie. He was just played superbly by actor David Johnson. He did an outstanding job. As far as his acting caliber, he towered over everybody in this movie. He did a phenomenal job. Next, I want to say Rain did an excellent job. The character was great. I really loved the dynamic between her and Andy. So these movies, if they're good, or they try to be good, they're going to have themes, right? And typically, the theme for Alien is one about corporate greed, the value of life, human life, because you see that the corporations, the Wayland Industries is like people are expendable so long as we get the alien. So we talk about the value of human life, corporate greed. But this film does something novel as far as presenting a new theme to this series. Now, the themes in Covenant and Prometheus, they were themes about creationism, right? And things like that. But here, the theme we have is what makes us human, right? And to me, this dynamic between Rain and Andy is what illustrates that. And it's very similar to what we see in the Blade Runner series, right? As far as an android having human qualities, right? And things like that. And I really thought that was fascinating and admirable. So those two characters, Andy and Rain, were great. And, initially at first, I was kind of on the fence about Rain. Kaylee Spani, I think that's how you pronounce her name. I was kind of on the fence about her, but she definitely grew on me. And by the end of the film, I was rooting for her, and I thought she was outstanding. And I will definitely put her in the same category that I put Ripley and Elizabeth Shaw as just great female heroes, right? Love it. She is a million times better than Daniels from Covenant, who I just thought fucking sucked. Now, so who else was good in this movie? Well, I was very surprised by Isabella Merced's performance. Now, when I found out she was going to be in this movie, I rolled my eyes and said, it's going to suck. I was like, why are you putting this Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, teeny bopper, Dora the Explorer actor in my Alien movie? This is going to suck. I'm like, this is going to be a disaster. Well, I'm glad I was proven wrong. I was proven wrong, man. I had a blast watching Isabella Merced be scared out of her fucking mind. She did an excellent job. She really did, man. Like when she screams and she's terrified and you see that she's scared shitless and trying to be quiet and not get caught by the alien. I was rooting for her. I laughed. I was laughing because of how great she performed her character's role. She did an outstanding job. Really. I had a lot of fun watching her. And she has acting abilities that I overlooked, and I admit I was wrong. I was wrong. Now, they kind of go for this whole total like they kind of go for this Friday the 13th teen slasher vibe with this young cast. So at first it was kind of hard for me to get into this cast because they're so young when compared to the cast members of all the previous other movies. So all the cast members in the previous other movies, you felt like they were in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Here, these characters feel like they're in their late teens, early 20s, and it was jarring at first for me. It was jarring, but you know what? Like I said, it's the dynamic between Rain and Andy really sold it to me. And that's what made it work. Even though it was jarring at first. And also, just again, when you have that and you have all these issues with the plot setup in the first act, it was like, I don't know about this movie, man. But again, by the time we get to the second and third act, I was ready for the ride. I was enjoying it. Now, the other cast members, I really didn't give a crap about, or I just found insufferable. So who did I find insufferable? Like, I swear to God, man, the character of Bjorn, I just wanted the alien to like bite this dude's head off. He was so insufferable and was like this big flaming asshole. And they try to give an explanation as to why he's this big flaming asshole. And I just was like, oh man, this explanation doesn't make me empathize with him. I mean, can somebody just like shoot him in the face already? And he was just such a fucking asshole. And they tried to say, oh, it's because his mom died in a mining accident. And the androids basically just sacrificed her life in order to save other personnel in the mine. So basically the androids they subscribed to the belief that basically the lives of the many outweigh the lives of the few. And unfortunately, Bjorn's parents were killed because of that decision. And because of that, he hates androids, right? He hates Andy. He is such an asshole to Andy. But you know what? It's overacting. That's the problem. I mean, there was no subtlety in his performance. There was no nuance. It just came across as overacting, and it got under my skin, man. And I just couldn't wait for him to die. And when he did die, I felt like it was too easy, man. I wanted to see this guy I wanted to see the xenomorph chew this dude up, spit him out, and eat him again. That's how annoying he was. And I get what they were trying to go for. They were trying to go for this kind of asshole character, maybe that you could empathize, but they failed miserably. I do not empathize with Bjorn whatsoever. I feel like his performance was overacting. I didn't like him. I found him insufferable. Insufferable. There wasn't one thing this character did that I enjoyed. Now, the other characters like Tyler and Navarro, I mean, I'm just indifferent to them. Navarro was whatever. She was a fart in the wind. I could care less. Tyler too. Tyler was just okay, whatever. He was whatever, bland. These characters were bland. I didn't empathize with them. I didn't hate them, but I didn't empathize with them either. So that's pretty much my breakdown with the cast, right? But I will say this. Thank God they were better than the cast from Covenant. And thank God you had two great characters, Andy and Rain. Now, one thing that I observed in this movie that I thought was kind of interesting was that, you have some lore building, and that was showing that Wayland Industries have basically indentured servants, right? And we never really seen that before. Because all this time we've just seen Wayland Industries presented to us kind of on a corporate level, or seeing the scientists. Now we see the employees all the way on the very bottom, right? The miners. And we see that they're basically indentured servants. And I don't know if it's really expanded upon, but we know that Rain's parents die as a result of respiratory diseases from mining. And I don't know if it's explained or not as to why Rain is in this predicament where she's basically just stuck in this life of servitude as an indentured servant to Wayland Industries. Like, did her parents have like debts? And when they died, did their debts roll over to Rain? I don't know. But I really wish they expanded upon that. But it's just an observation. It's interesting, but at the same time, I kind of wish it was elaborated more, because essentially they're slaves, right? So Wayland Industries has slaves? Or what? Are they slaves? Or are they stuck in this predicament because of debt? What? I'd like to know. Maybe it'll be explained in a future film, whatever. I mean, I don't really read alien comic books, especially the Marvel ones. I did read the Dark Horse comics, especially the ones that take place after Aliens. And it's basically the original timeline of what happened after Aliens, before Alien 3 came out and screwed everything up. But yeah, those are just interesting things. Another interesting thing is that Rain's dad found Andy and basically programmed Andy to be the protector of his daughter, right? And that brings us to the themes of what it means to be human, right? And I thought that was interesting because we have the traditional themes that are in the Alien series, such as corporate greed, the value of human life. And now we have this. What does it mean to be human? And we see this with the relationship between Andy and Rain, because Rain treats Andy like a brother. I mean, she even gets affectionate with him in a brotherly way, holding his hand, cuddling, things like that. And yes, it's obvious that she's doing this because she doesn't have a family since her parents died. But what makes this really interesting is that even though Andy is not human, the emotions that Rain feels are real. So even though Andy is not real, her emotions are real. And again, that leads us to believe that brings us to like Blade Runner shit, man, which is also from Ridley Scott. Even though Ridley Scott didn't direct this one, he did produce it, right? So I really like that that's in this movie. And one thing that I thought was really fascinating was that when Andy, because something happens to Andy, right? Andy starts out this movie almost like some passive pushover, right? And it's because his programming is to be Rain's protector, right? So he's kind of a pushover, and he's very human. But when he gets reprogrammed, when Rain takes the android Rook's chip out and puts it in Andy so that he can save her comrades, his personality changes. And he's more like an android, right? And less like a human. So I thought that was fascinating. I thought what is fascinating is that when he was more human, the characters treated him like shit. And then when he became an android, they were mad at him. And then they slowly transitioned into fearing him. And I thought that was interesting because it's like when he was more human, you treated him like shit and you walked all over him. But now that he's an android, programmed to basically fulfill the duties that Wayland Industries wants, fulfill those objectives, now they're mad at him. Now they don't appreciate him. Now it's a problem, right? I thought that was an interesting thing, right? And we also see, like, when they're on the planet, we also see this whole thing about kind of like there's like this discrimination towards androids, but it's understandable, especially if they're making bad calls like sacrificing Bjorn's family. But you know what? I mean, sometimes I honestly think even if it wasn't an android, a human would make the same call as well, right? But again, you see Andy getting picked on, right? Solely because he's a robot or whatever. Now, one so we're still kind of in the first act of this movie. Now, one thing I really didn't like about this movie, and again, it's all in the first act, is that the way that they get from this planet to the Romulus space station was way too easy. Like, look, check it out, man. So you're going to sit here and tell me that any motherfucker with a ship can simply just take off and land on a space station that's within orbit or whatever of the within a close proximity of the space station, and nobody's gonna notice? Again, the biggest problem with this movie is the setup, how our characters get to the space station, how the alien is introduced to the movie. It's like the writers just like, it's like they just didn't know what to do, so they just pulled a bunch of shit out of their ass, hoping that the audience wouldn't figure out how stupid it is. Like, so this planet is controlled by Wayland Industries. This mining planet is controlled by Wayland Industries. Then you have this space station that's also Wayland Industries space station, just chilling above the atmosphere, and any random ship can go up there. Like, don't the ships that come in and out of the planet's atmosphere have to file a flight plan or some shit? I mean, if you have to do that on Earth just for flying planes, can you imagine going in and out of space? Leaving the planet, coming and going? I mean, come on, man. And it's like these kids, these young adults, they act like it's like stealing their parents' car and like going to the club without getting caught. Like yeah, we'll just steal mom and dad's car and go to that space station and hope nobody notices. It's like, oh, come on, man. I mean, one rewrite could have fixed that problem easily. And then another thing I have to ask, and I get it. It's a mystery. I said it's okay because it's a mystery that the space station is abandoned. But I mean, they should have had. This is what they should have done. Look, once the space station started to approach the planet, this mining planet, they should have had some like Wayland Industries representatives be like, "Hey, there's the space station that's floating into orbit or whatever, coming near our planet." And then you could have like Wayland Industries, the representatives on this planet, called the headquarters of Wayland Industries, and then the personnel at the headquarters being like, "Don't go near the planet. We're going to send personnel on the way right now. We'll be there in 48 hours. And then it could have been like a race, a race against time, right? Between like, so you have our characters trying to leave the Romulus space station because the alien is after them, and the planet's about to collide with the rings of the planet or whatever. And then it's also a race against time for Wayland Industries to get to this space station to save it. But my whole point is that Wayland Industries should be aware that this thing is floating around near their planet, their mining planet, man. I mean, come on. But again, instead, it's portrayed like a bunch of teenagers stealing mom and dad's car and going out for the night and hoping they can get back without being noticed. I mean, and really, I mean, like, that's about it as far as the things I really disliked about this movie, except for one more thing, but it's not as big a deal as this, right? This has to deal with plot. Now, fortunately, after our characters get to this space station, so the reason why they want to get to this space station is because they're trying to leave the planet. They're indentured servants, right? And they basically can't leave this planet until they serve all the years that they have to serve. And then again, that leads me to ask, why the hell would you just let people, your indentured servants, come and go as they please? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, why is there no requisite or obligation to file a flight plan to say, hey, I'm going to be gone for a couple of days to your employer if it's such a big deal that you can't leave for X amount of years. So anyway, they go to the space station because they want to take the cryo tubes that they could sleep in those tubes for 10 years, 9 years, whatever, so they could go to another planet, right? And basically run away from their obligations, their life of servitude, their life of being indentured servants. So that's why they go to the Romulus space station, to get the cryo chambers or whatever the hell you want to call them, right? So once we actually get on the space station, the rest of the movie is pretty good, right? And once we get there, I mean, that's where this movie excels, man. It really captures the spirit of Aliens, I want to say, more so than Alien, but it captures that spirit, that slow burn, being stuck in that claustrophobic atmosphere. I mean, and you have some really, really great scenes on this Romulus space station. So one thing that I absolutely love that the filmmakers did for this movie, I love how they split up the crew. That was great. That was exciting. So what happens is, so you have, I guess it's Tyler, Bjorn, and Andy. They're going to go and try to find the cryo tubes or the energy to power the cryo tubes. And it's basically found out that Andy is going to have to be abandoned ultimately, because I guess there's only, the planet that they want to go to doesn't allow androids or something like that. So then that's something that Rain has to come to terms with, right? And yeah, that's just more food for thought as far as her having to leave her quote unquote brother behind, even though he's an android. Again, he's not real, but her emotions are. So what makes us human, right? So they go there trying to get the cryo tubes and the power packets or whatever to power them, and then they accidentally let out some face huggers, man, and then all shit hits the fan, man. And that's when this film becomes a blast, and it's fun, and it's thrilling, and it's exciting, and it's suspenseful. And basically, in order for our characters to survive, they had to switch Andy's chip from this Rook character, who was the android that was initially on the space station when everything hit, when shit hit the fan, man, before the big disaster happened. So all this experimentation as far as reverse engineering the original alien from the original Alien movie created all these face huggers and the pathogen from Prometheus, and basically it was a disaster that happened, and they take Rook's chip, put it in Andy so that Andy can have access to Mother, which is basically the AI for the ship, and then he can help them escape the predicament that they're in. But as a result of that, Bjorn doesn't trust Andy, because what happens is the Navarro character gets impregnated with an alien. So a face hugger jumps on her face, and Andy's like, hey man, she can't come with us. The likelihood that she's pregnant is very high. Pregnant with the alien. And then Bjorn, he ain't trying to hear it, so he's basically like, fuck you guys, I'm out. And he's ready to, not only is he going to abandon Andy, he's going to abandon Tyler too, man, and Rain. Which was like, whoa, like this dude is a big, like you really don't like Bjorn. I don't like him because I don't think he was acted good, but I mean, it's like, there's nothing to like about the Bjorn character. And basically he takes off and he goes he brings Navarro to where Isabella Merced's character is. Right now, Isabella Merced didn't accompany any of the other crew members because she's pregnant and she's resting, she's having morning sickness or something like that. And it's inferred that Bjorn is the baby daddy, right? And I'm just kind of like, really? Like, man, like, come on. I mean, it's not a big deal, but really? This fucking asshole is the baby daddy. I mean, and she even says, when Rain asks her who's the father, she's like, some asshole. And I'm like, well, if it's him, why not just say it? You guys are all friends. I mean, I don't know. It was a little disappointing as far as like developing these relationships and these characters, but it's not a big deal because the main characters are Rain and Andy. But anyway, the characters get split up because Bjorn is like, fuck you guys. It's just me, Navarro, and Isabella, and we're out of here. And then a disaster happens when the Navarro character gives birth to an alien, burst out of her chest, and then the ship that they were trying to take off on crashes into the other side of the Romulus, and it's exciting, man. It's exciting. This Fede Alvarez dude knows how to direct horror in such an exciting and thrilling way. It was exciting to watch, man. And so that leaves our characters split up, which I thought was really, really great idea because it makes everything so much more suspenseful. Now, let's talk about some of the fan service that's in this movie. Now, some of it is okay, but some of it is just outright just stupid and should not have been in there. Now, I already told you about how you see the Nostromo at the beginning of this movie, which was dumb. One thing that was just, we just got to get this out this way because if everybody that's seen this movie already knows what I'm about to say. That scene where Andy is like, "Get away from her, you bitch," was so fucking stupid. Like, I don't know how a group of adults who say they like Alien could sit there and watch this and be happy with that and say, yeah, that is cool. Oh my God. Like that was like the worst thing ever. Like, you cringe so hard. Why? Why did you do that? It's so fucking stupid. I mean, you don't need to remind me of Aliens. And not only that, but in the timeline, this takes place before Aliens. And not only that, the line delivery was so stupid. He like literally goes, "Get away from her, you bitch." What the fuck, man? I mean, I can't for the life of me reason with how anybody could watch that and think like that's so cool. The audience is going to enjoy that. Oh my God. You know, and it's funny because Fox, who made this, and even though it's owned by Disney now, but whatever, the same studio, Fox, they did the same exact thing in the new Planet of the Apes trilogy, particularly Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the first one that took place in San Francisco. They had like the guy that was basically like the animal abuser guy that worked in the kennel or whatever you want to say. He went, "Get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape," just like Charlton Heston did in the original Planet of the Apes. And even then, it was like, why did you have him say that? Like, it's not cool. Please stop having new characters say iconic lines from previous movies that are like 30, 40, 50 years old. It's fucking stupid. Please. Okay. Like, that was like the worst fan service in this movie. That was fan disservice. I'm saying. Another thing. Okay, now, one good fan service thing that I liked, and I think you got to be a real diehard fan to pick this up, is when they freeze the face hugger off of Navarro, right? And I thought that was kind of funny because it reminds me of the original Alien, where you have that one character, I can't remember his name, but it was the black character, and you have Kane who has the face hugger on his face. And he comes on the ship and he just keeps on saying, like, why don't you freeze him? And then everybody's just ignoring him. And then he's just like, man, I don't understand. Why don't they freeze him? And he keeps on saying that. And, I watched that movie and I'm just like, and I asked myself, like, yeah, why don't they just freeze him? And they never freezed him, Ash. And look what happened. Shit hit the fan. Right? And it was just funny how, like, they finally do it. They finally freeze the face hugger off Navarro's face, and it comes off. And then I just thought of that character from the original Alien and was like, oh, and all I just heard, why don't you freeze him? So I thought that was cool. Now another fan service thing that's kind of a mixed bag is Rook. So they make Rook look like Ash, the android from the original Alien movie. And okay, I mean, it's not a big deal. Now, I had some discussions with some other Alien fans, and some of them were mad because they say that Ash was supposed to be like an infiltration droid, like that he wasn't like this mass marketed model. And I'm like, well, okay, but you have to remember this movie, Romulus, takes place 10 years after the original Alien. So, I mean, maybe it was a unique infiltration droid that nobody knew about when the Nostromo was around, but maybe now it's been mass released to the market. Whatever. I mean, to me, I'm not going to make a big deal out of that. If anything, it's fan service, right? And so Rook looks like Ash, who was played by actor Ian Holm. And you know what, man? I mean, as far as a character goes, he was fine. Rook was fine. They use Rook a lot for expositional dialogue. Okay, that's fine. But I will say this, man. The CGI for his face was off, man. I mean, and I'm not even a picky person when it comes to shit like that. But there were moments when I was looking at his face and I was like, what the fuck is going on, man? They fumbled big time on that. Like, look, man. When I first saw Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy, I was impressed with that. When I saw Tarkin in Rogue One, I was impressed with that. When I saw Luke Skywalker at the end of Mandalorian Season 2, I was happy, I was excited. I went back and I was like, you know what, man, it could have been better, but, whatever, it's good enough, right? But when I saw Rook, man, when I saw this, I was like, something is wrong, dude. You know what it looks like to me? It looks like this character's CGI, the attempt to make him look like Ian Holm, the actor from the original Alien, it looks like it looks like face swap technology was used. Like they use a face swap app. You know how they have those apps where you can like swap your face or a picture of somebody in your phone's face with an actor's or something like that, and the end results, it looks kind of sort of like, it looks weird. It looks like a hybrid of your face and the actor's face, or like there's like the actor is on your face but like there's like this flicker that it just looks off. In other words, that's what this looked like, man. And I was like, what the hell? And you know what? If you watch the behind the scenes making of documentaries of this movie, they actually had a lot of practical effects for this movie. And I appreciate that, because that is one thing that I forgot to say about Covenant. The CGI was shit in Covenant, man. The Alien was such a huge disappointment in Alien Covenant. Like, every time I saw the Alien Covenant, I was like, boring, CGI, hella obvious. Well, here in Romulus, and thank God for this, infinite praise for Romulus for bringing back practical effects, because there wasn't a single moment outside of Rook where I was like looking at the xenomorphs, looking at the face huggers, and I was like, that looks like shit. Oh my god, the CGI so bad. Again, except for Rook. But fortunately, it's not that big of a deal because he's just there for expositional dialogue, right? Now, another thing that was really exciting about this movie is how they set up this countdown for the space station to it's gonna clash into the rings of this planet, right? And that's something very unique. I've never seen anything like that in a science fiction film, right? And when it actually happens, when you see the space station collide into the rings, kind of like the rings of Saturn, I thought that was badass. I loved it, right? And again, the director, he utilizes silence to make the scene even more powerful. Beautiful stuff, man. Beautiful. Because that silence makes it feel all the more terrifying. So I thought that was great. So we learned through expositional dialogue, through Rook, that basically this space station found the alien from the original movie. They did all this reverse engineering stuff, were able to create face huggers. They were even able to create the pathogen, the black goo, the synthesis stuff, whatever, from Prometheus, right? And I thought that was interesting. That was a nice little nod to Prometheus. Glad they're not giving Prometheus the middle finger. I know some people didn't like it, but I love Prometheus. I love it a lot, right? Because I love it because of the themes of creationism, and it had those themes of the ancient astronaut theory, which I'm a huge fan of. But coming back to Romulus. So this Isabella Merced character is pregnant, and she gets wounded because Andy basically abandons her, right? And you got to remember, Andy has a new personality. He switched chips with Rook. So now Andy, he's thinking like an android, and he's less human. And now everybody's shitting in their pants. When they were treating him, when he was human, they were treating him like shit. Now that he's taking initiative and being an android, they're pissed off. But anyway, he had to make a call. So Isabella Merced, she was locked behind this door. She was pleading for help. Andy decided not to open the door because there was an alien trapped in the room with Isabella Merced, and he said, "Hey man, if I open that door, the alien would come. There's not enough time for the door to open and close." So Isabella Merced's character gets wounded, and she decides to use the pathogen, this black goo, which is supposed to, I guess you want to say, like, regenerate tissue, human tissue, or whatever. And she decides to use it to heal her wounds. But what happens is she gets impregnated. So basically, you know how it is with this pathogen. It synthesizes with the pregnant baby that she was already pregnant with, and it creates this new alien, man. And this new alien was disturbing, dude. It was this like I get, some fans kind of feel like this idea is not novel because we saw a human alien hybrid in Alien Resurrection, right? And honestly, I did not like that. I did not like the alien in Alien Resurrection, that half human, half alien. The human part came from Ripley, and I did not like that shit, man. It was weird, man. I'll get into it when I review it, but one thing I didn't like about Alien Resurrection was that it's like there was like this like paternal mom and child relationship between the alien and Ripley, and it even started to feel incestuous. and it just was weird, man, and it creeped me out in a not good way. It wasn't entertaining, creepy out. It was a nasty, like this shit's absurd, preposterous, and I didn't like that. But here, I thought this new alien was disturbing. I was like, holy shit, this is scary, man. It just seemed like a cross between the space jockey engineers and a xenomorph, right? And the way that it terrified Isabella Merced's character, like by the time she got killed, man, you were like, I was exhausted on her behalf because she went through so much. She did such a good job as being a terrified victim in this movie, man. I got to give her her props. Now, these xenomorphs are running all over the place in this space station, and I got to say, um once Andy gets back to being his usual self and Rain start to team up. So Tyler, again, this Tyler character, it's like I forget he's even there. But they were trying to, I think they were trying to go for like this Hicks and Ripley thing, but he just had no. I mean, again, I literally forgot he was part of this cast. So Tyler dies, Rain's sad, Andy becomes his usual self again once the chip gets removed. Um, he was initially like all about saving the pathogen, getting it back to Wayland Industries since he had the chip, Rook's chip back in him, but then that got overrided. And then now Rook is losing his mind because he's like, the mission is all that matters. Typical themes in these movies, man. It's all about Wayland Industries' desires and objectives. Who cares about the lives of the crew? They're expendable. Who cares about human life, period? Long as we get the pathogen, long as we get the xenomorph, long as we get the tissue samples, right? So we can reverse engineer it for our bioweaponry division. So once Andy's back to normal, and he's reunited with Rain, and he's his usual self, we get some badass stuff, man. And this is where Rain's character truly shines, and this is where I really started to root for her character. I really started to champion her character. And I was like, you know what? I like Rain. She is right there with Ripley and Elizabeth Shaw. Well, maybe not Ripley. Ripley will always be the best, but she's right there with Elizabeth Shaw as those strong female badasses. And it's not done in a cheesy, cliche, eye-rolling way like Rey from the Disney Star Wars trilogy, right? Like, this was done and it felt natural. And I'm rooting for her. And I love seeing her with that, I guess what you want to call it, a plasma rifle or whatever the hell it was. And how they use the gravity joke that Andy tells her. It was a eureka moment. So they disabled the gravity so that they could kill the aliens without having their acid blood burn a hole through the ship's hull and cause this big disaster, right? I thought that was great. Thought that was real novel idea. It was exciting. Yeah, and I like her wardrobe. It's very simple, but seeing her in those little sneakers and she's wearing those little kind of like those shorts, you know, and she's just with that rifle. I thought that was badass, man. It totally made me feel it was a nod to Ripley, right? In the original film, when she gets caught off guard when she's changing and she's in her underwear, and then the original alien is in her shuttle, or Elizabeth Shaw when she comes out of the that when she performs a C-section on herself and she's basically just freaking the fuck out in Prometheus after she takes the alien baby out of herself, and she's just like, oh, terrors, like, what the hell's going on, it really felt like a throwback to that, and I really thought that was cool. Now, so Andy tells these jokes, and I think it's a nice little cute moment between him, and Rain, and yeah, I love how they use a joke as the idea for her to defeat the aliens. Now, this brings us back to this alien human hybrid that was born from Isabella Merced's character. And yeah, Rain and Andy, they're able to defeat this thing. And it was an epic moment, exciting. And when this movie ends, I was thrilled. I was thrilled. Despite all the shortcomings from the first act, despite some of the terrible setup to get our protagonist on the space station and bringing back the original alien, by the time the movie ended, I was like, you know what? This is definitely going into the batch of good alien movies. It's better than Alien 3, way better than Alien 3, which I thought was kind of boring. It's infinitely better than Resurrection. And I want to say this movie blows Covenant out the water. This movie is what Covenant wanted to be. So Alien Covenant was a knee-jerk reaction to Prometheus. For all the people that didn't like Prometheus because there's no xenomorph, blah, 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 blah. All those people that didn't like Prometheus, Covenant was made for you. To the detriment of the lore, of the story that they set up. Because they basically did what Last Jedi did and Rise of Skywalker did. Tried to rewrite what the previous entry did. And again, it just ruined the story. But the point is, Covenant tried to bring it back to the original Alien. Like bring back the xenomorphs, bring back the vibe of the original Alien and Aliens movies, right? But it failed because it had a terrible cast and it was a terrible story and it ruined the setup from Prometheus. It failed. This movie, Romulus, succeeds where Covenant failed. It really does successfully capture the spirit of Aliens by the time the movie is over. Now, am I saying it's good as Aliens? Hell no. It's nowhere near as good as Aliens. Aliens is impeccable and is one of the greatest, not only one of the greatest sci-fi action horror movies ever made, I consider it one of the greatest movies ever made, right? But Romulus is definitely a thrill and definitely a blast. And I really enjoyed it. That being said, I give Alien Romulus a B. And I recommend it. Thank you for listening to this review and in-depth analysis of Alien Romulus. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. Take care, people. And last but not least, one love.